here we are.
I have to say, your work look, it does remind me of that Apple TV show. I think I said it last time.
Severance?
Severance. Yeah, like you look like you're... I think it's because we can't see anything behind you. Like there's something severance-y about it.
Yeah.
That
That's not the show I'm writing for, to be clear.
That wasn't what I was trying to claim.
I just bought Apple TV the other day to watch the Phils because they were locked under Apple TV. But might watch Severance now.
God, I love the Phils.
Severance.
Tough one today.
Severance. Yeah, today was a getaway day game. It was, you could sniff it from a mile away. I thought they were going to pull it out in the night.
It was all lining up at the end. Yep. It would have been so sweet. But
it was a little bit nice to not have to get like a box score ready for the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't have to arrange my game notes together.
There is something incredibly nice about the off-season pods.
What's the percentage difference between the playoff pods and the off-season pods? It's got to be a steep drop.
Oh, playoff pods?
Yeah.
The biggest difference is YouTube. Like YouTube, we get a big pop, I think, just because of all the live people. Like,
are you talking about how many people are watching, or just like pods we do throughout the year?
Listening
/ watching. I would say the YouTube versions of the playoff pods are like double what our normal ones are, but Spotify's almost the same. And in season and out of season is pretty close, generally. Like there's not that much of a difference.
Yeah.
The playoff ones pop though, like trade deadline. They're like almost like trade pods on some level.
Yeah. Year over year, they've been going up as well. Yeah.
Especially because our YouTube audience keeps going up. YouTube audience, this playoffs in general, like we have like 35% more subscribers. Because remember, we hit 10,000 right before the Paul Reed one.
Yeah.
Hang on one sec.
Every now and then, a new feature comes out, and then someone will ask or assume if I personally added the feature. I did not add rewind to live streams on YouTube, but I didn't know that wasn't already a feature. I assumed that you could rewind before. I don't know.
All right.
Rewind feels like it's like one of the first two things you should be able to do once a video feature is out.
Yeah.
Wait, is what? I'm sorry.
Like rewind.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like people are playing video. Hi, what do we do? What should we do? Let them go back? That's crazy. We're not close to being able to do that yet.
I am going to do my best to not cough and cough and cough during this. Be good for the listeners and the viewers. All right.
All right.
All right, listeners and viewers. Here we go. Wait, there it is. Right at the start. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS, and brought to you by Body Bio. Get 20% off any Body Bio order at bodybio.com with code Mike's Tummy. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. And Kinetic Skateboarding, get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On the show today, we bid farewell to one Tobias Harris as our own Mike O'Connor finally puts out the article that he's been dying to write for nearly 3 years. We talk about some more free agents and some pessimism about Paul George, both from the Sixers fans and some people in the media, perhaps former players. And we talk about potential other off-season targets. Excuse me. Kinetic Skateboarding, which I mentioned. Boy, we love it. I saw a pair. What are those? CJ, you see those orange Nikes that were on the social today? That was pretty sweet. What I would recommend you doing with Kinetic Skateboarding is follow them on Instagram at Kinetic Skateboarding, on Twitter at Kinetic Skate. They have these shoe drops that happen like boom. You got to be following them, because these are sneakers that you cannot get anywhere else. They're not even like the ones like the Jordans, the ones that you see in the sneaker apps or whatever, completely different ones. Nike, Vans, Converse, all New Balance, all that kind of stuff. Follow them on social and go to kineticskateboarding.com. And as you're preparing for the summer, need some new shorts, some t-shirts, gear up, as the kids say. Kids say that? No, absolutely not. At Kinetic Skateboarding. And use code Dave Silver for 9.1% off your first order. And a special mention, if you didn't listen to the pod earlier this week, you may remember a Ricky listener named Mike Dori, who was diagnosed with brain cancer in May of 2021 and lost that fight with brain cancer in September of 2022. He was 30 years old. He had two little kids, Dominic and Dante, and his wife, Rebecca. We did a couple GoFundMes for them. Very, very sweet people. His wife, Rebecca, is a writer and has written a book called I'd Still Choose You, which is about Mike and her relationship with Mike, and then the battle with cancer and her dealing with the grief afterwards. It's very touching, and it came out on Tuesday. There are two versions. The Kindle version is just 99 cents, and then there's the paperback right here, available on Amazon, and we will put it in the show notes. It is currently, thanks to Ricky listeners, ranked number 2 in Amazon motherhood books, number 1 in parenting, number 2 in journal writing, which is awesome. Would love to see the support for the book, and I recommend the book. It's very good as a support for one of our own. And she also started a charity in his name called the Mike Dori Small Moments Foundation, which helps out kids in the area who have lost a parent to cancer. So part of the book sales go to that charity. There's an event on Thursday night for the book as well at Forest and Maine, the brewery in Ambler, from 5 to 9. So would love to watch the book shoot up the charts to show the power of the Ricky and the power of our community. And again, book made me cry a couple times, really good. And if you get a chance to listen to the pod, we did an interview with Rebecca about 35 minutes earlier this week. It is in your pod feed. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who is in an undisclosed dark room, not developing film, just a different kind of dark room. That is Mike Levin.
Here we are. I guess I just do midweek podcasts from the screening room at work now. I think this is it. This is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that means the likelihood of my boss coming in at a certain point.
Oh, yeah.
To his screening room and asking me what I'm doing is very high.
So when I was a student at Syracuse, our radio station was down the hall from an auditorium where they had classes. And there was one class that I went to for the first 3 times. And I wasn't a class cutter, but I was doing the morning show on the radio station. So I just stopped going to the class, but it was right down the hall. And one time, we had turned the volume all the way up on 112 and Allure's All Cried Out, and we were singing it at the top of our lungs. And the teacher from the class came over and asked us to turn it down as I was cutting his class. And that reminds me of this. Even though it's not the same thing, it sort of reminds me of it.
Yeah, I guess if I was doing this podcast while the writer's room was
going on, yeah,
that would be a little bit more problematic.
Yeah.
We came close during the playoffs a couple times, but that's over now, so we do this.
As Logan asked in the chat, if your boss does come in, could you get him to say the name?
We'll see. We'll see.
This comes from Luke to Rights To Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Before it plays out, at this point, would you rather see the Knicks lose to the Pacers and bow out of the playoffs, or see the Knicks go to the NBA Finals? Would it feel better as a Sixers fan to lose to the team that represents the East?
I don't particularly care about that. I know that the Knicks are a solid team. Brunson, I haven't looked in a few minutes, but was out for much of the first half.
So he was out at the end of the first quarter. He came out for the third quarter.
Okay.
But he did not look right. Like he was hobbling around and he wasn't even dribbling in that first possession. Then I came over here.
They're probably not going to win this game or the series unless Brunson is playing and right.
That would be tough. Something tells me there's something about this Knicks team where every game would be a one possession game with 1 minute left, even without Brunson. Yeah.
But I would say I do still like those Nova guys, and there's nobody on the Knicks I really like hate. Isaiah Hartenstein did lose me a playoff series in execs, a championship, by one free throw.
Oh no.
Which hurts that he would do this to me in real life and in fantasy. But I do really like his game. I like the Pacers. I like Tyrese Halliburton.
Mm.
I like TJ.
Yeah, of course.
I've always, enjoyed how bizarre of a game Pascal Siakam has. I'm rooting for the Pacers, but not because I dislike the Knicks.
Yeah, I go back and forth. There's something, the Knicks are, this version of the Knicks, pretty easy team to root for, play hard, players played for Villanova, yada, yada, yada. Their fans, I can't take them. So I want to see the fans sad, but the team, I don't mind very much. The Pacers seem a little fraudulent to me. The Western Conference seems far more interesting to this point than the Eastern Conference does. Do you think any thoughts, like if you had I don't know what you picked before the playoffs, but if you had to pick now, who would you pick to win the title?
Man, it's cool to see Minnesota do what they're doing.
It's wild.
It is so, you think about this with players a lot and teams. It's both. Like when I remember like 2017 or 18, I was like, I think Kawhi is the best player in the league. And that was not a popular opinion because he hadn't done it on like a massive stage yet as like the number one guy. And then obviously what happened with Toronto happened. And then he became that. And I think other people felt that about Jokic before he was doing it on that level. And I think you think about that with teams sometimes. And the Wolves had such a stench of loser energy.
Yep.
Between Gobert and the stuff that has been, surrounding him his whole career, and Towns, just his, vibe generally. And then the franchise being like a franchise that has not done anything, has barely won a round in their history. And then all of a sudden they get the right guy there and they're playing hard and they play long and they play physical and they D up and they're well coached. And Mike Conley makes every team he plays for better.
And by the way, the NBA changed the rules in the middle of the season in a way that probably benefits them in this series, you know?
But to go up 2-0 on Denver on the road is awesome. It's cool to see it. And so maybe we'll look back in 5 years and go, obviously that was the start of Minnesota being, the best team in the league. But it's hard to know. It's hard to know while it's happening. It's hard to it happens quick. When all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, this has happened. They're allowed to go up 2-0 on the reigning champions and the 3-time MVP. It's cool. It's fun. It's fun to see.
And the Nuggets melting down, by the way, is
the Nuggets melting
wild
down,
to see.
And the Thunder looking so good. Like I think the Celtics are going to sleepwalk to an appearance in the championship. It seems like the East shook out well for them, and the East wasn't that good, and that kind of thing. But it could be any of the four of them out of the West. So I think I wouldn't rule out Dallas with how good Luka and Kyrie have been.
I would probably rule out Dallas. I think whoever wins Wolves Denver, assuming that it's Wolves, I think ends up going to the finals, which is crazy. And by the way, Wolves
Thunder are good, man. Thunder are just as good as those teams. I'm excited to see it.
I'm not so sure I buy it yet, but I don't know. We'll see. And And then the Wolves end up going against the Celtics if Porzingis isn't playing. All of a sudden you have this giant team going against the Celtics who are long and obviously very skilled, but I don't know if there's a team that could get Boston out of what they want to do offensively. It's probably Minnesota. So
yeah, I just don't. My rooting interests are anyone but the Celtics. Is just prevailing thought across the board. Anyone but Boston.
That's fair. So I think it's time. We didn't really get to do it last time. And Mike O'Connor, I put so many lines from this article in our thing. I almost wanted to do an audio version of this article because I feel like anyone who didn't read it needs to hear it. We did get this call about Tobias Harris to 833 Lickface.
Guys, one of my favorite Tobias Harris stats of all time, towards the end of his career, of course, towards the final games of his career, Tobias Harris scored a total of 0 points in the second half of his final 3 games with the 76ers. Now, I thought that this was really unusual after 2 games. Watched Game 6 to see the chances of this happening. Sure enough, did happen, completing the trifecta 3 games in a row. Later, tried to find out if this has ever happened before in the history of the NBA. It's a weird stat. Not really sure how to look something up like that in Basketball Reference. After conferring with a couple of different large language models between ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity, I cannot find a single instance in the history of the NBA that a starting player has gone scoreless in the second half of 3 consecutive playoff games. I mean, that's like a real TNT. Did you know, the bullshit stat that they throw at you? But just it's really remarkable, man. It's really wild to be living in the post-Tobias era. I'm so happy we're here. I can't believe that this guy was on this team for 6 years, man.
This from Mike O'Connor, who writes on rightstoRickySanchez.com. By the way, this article inspired more subscriptions to our website than any article that's been written
really?
Since we went to Substack.
That sounds right. It was great. It was a great article. To answer the caller, I think I would look at PJ Tucker and see if there's any some second halves that he didn't score in.
Yeah, but 3 straight would be, but I don't know. We'll see. So you can subscribe to Mike's writing. Everybody's writing at rightstoRickySanchez.com. That way you just get it emailed to you. Many teams hire part-time regional scouts as independent contractors and will contract independent companies to pay for their services. When I worked as a scout, for example, I worked for an independent company that sold insights and services to several NBA teams. It's a highly competitive industry, and the job requires you to be meticulous. Most scouts keep insane amounts of highly organized notes. If you ask a pro personnel scout for notes on a player's performance in a game they were assigned to 5 years ago, they could probably provide you with them. Their job is to miss absolutely nothing, to be encyclopedic. You could ask them about a very specific skill of an extremely obscure NBA player, and they should be able to give you a detailed answer. The reason I think about this depth of infrastructure is so often is this. I just can't fucking believe that any team could have the type of infrastructure to do what the Sixers did in 2019 with Tobias Harris. I don't get it. How is it possible? They gave up...
Tobias hit those free throws in Game 5. He didn't go scoreless in the second half.
You're right. This guy's call was completely bullshit.
I'm sure there were plenty of other examples. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was several of the games. It felt like there were games when he had he had 8 in the first half. Oh, that's pretty good. And then he finishes with 8 or 10 or something. But
yeah.
The free throws were big and felt like maybe momentous at the time of maybe this is when he turns it all around, and then 0 in his last game.
I like the call anyway.
Sure.
Even though it was a lie. They gave up 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and Landry Shamet to get him, and then they gave him the largest contract in franchise history to that point. But it didn't stop there. They also performed a bizarre backroom deal to sign Tobias' brother, Terry Harris, to a summer league contract.
So weird.
And later a training camp deal, followed by an Exhibit 9 deal to play for their G League team.
Just free money.
Terry, who averaged 8 points per game, playing 20 minutes per night as a fifth-year senior at North Carolina A&T, had absolutely no business being anywhere near the NBA, respectfully.
No.
He played 19 games with the Delaware Bluecoats that year, averaging 3.5 points per game on 35.6% shooting from the field.
Respectfully doing a lot of work there.
I will never in my life forget what an absolute nightmare it was to root for Tobias Harris during this era. He is by far the most maddening player I have ever watched. The simplest way I can describe the Tobias Harris conundrum is this. On a good team, he is nowhere near good enough as a scorer to be your second or third best player, nor is he anywhere near good enough at role player responsibilities to be your fifth best player. Even at his best, he is stuck in this limbo of never having the proper role to fit into. He is somehow underqualified for every role you put him in. There is no situation you could put him in that would allow him to impact winning at a high level on a night-to-night basis. The best thing that Tobias Harris ever could be in the NBA is an empty calorie score on a mediocre team. The highest purpose in his basketball life is to bring a 34-win team to a 37-win team.
100%. Dead hit. Direct. Bullseye.
But everything I just described, that only applies to good Tobias. When he's in bad Tobias mode, which he was for basically the entire second half of the season, he is one of the single most harmful high-minute players in the NBA.
Yeah, it is crazy. You're gonna keep reading, but I just keep chiming in here. And there. No. It's still very good.
Okay.
I really did love this article. It was baffling that like really almost nothing he could do almost nothing to get the Sixers to bench him.
No.
Any coach, any of the 3 coaches he played for when he was here, no one would do it. And like once in a while, he like sat the last 3 minutes when some other role player was hot, but like there was never a time when it was like, oh, Tobias is just going to play 21 minutes for a while because he's not worth more than that. It felt like they kept believing for years and years that he would just find a way to be useful. And too often he just really, really was not. Really wasn't. And that's why I look at those guys and it's like, you got to either be really good off ball or really, really good on ball and at least or a really, really good defender. And he was just none of them. He was just none of them. And also Michael Connor calls him athletic in this article, and he's just not. He's big. And he's not the least athletic player in the league. But for his size, he's pretty close.
Yeah, he's not athletic. He's fine, I guess.
He has no quick twitch athleticism.
No,
maybe like from a standstill jump, he could get up a little bit more than others. And he is definitely big and has a big NBA 6'8" body. But no, definitely not. Look at him versus Derrick Jones Jr. There's not
really the same
move
thing
in similar ways whatsoever. And to be that big and not be that physical, like it's big,
right.
It's pointlessly big.
The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by Body Bio. Body Bio, we love them. First of all, because they're a partner of ours. But second of all, because they're fucking great. They are a family-owned and operated supplement company in South Jersey, trusted by over 10,000 doctors and healthcare professionals. They are fixated on making sure that you're healthy. Go to bodybio.com, use code Mike's Tummy for 20% off everything. You know, one of the advantages of them being a sort of smaller, more nimble company is they can be better at quality control. They test every batch of every product they do. If something does not live up to their standards, they take it off the website until it's right. They've done that over the last year. We've had a couple of questions. Hey, why isn't Calm there? It's back up. Why isn't Gut Plus there? It's because the product was not living up to their standards, so they took it off. They care about it. One product that is there, Calm. Now, you should be calm now. Sixers playoffs are over, but Calm, something maybe perhaps before work, maybe before bed, all natural, soothes the nerves a little bit. E-Light, which is your hydration solution, 100% electrolytes. No artificial flavors, no artificial colors, no sugar. Put a little bit in your water in the morning, a little bit in the evening, and it keeps you perfectly hydrated. Hydration, not just about water, about electrolytes as well. And if you can take one gut supplement in the entire world to control bloat, keep you regular, you know, all that kind of stuff, sodium butyrate, B-U-T-Y-R-A-T-E. Give it a try. There's a few different butyrates on the website, but try sodium butyrate if you don't know which one to go. Go to bodybio.com. Use code Mike's Tummy for 20% off any order. That is code Mike's Tummy at bodybio.com. Final part here. One thing is for sure. The Tobias trade and contract, and there's much more. Again, you should go read it. The Tobias trade and contract should serve as a major lesson for the Sixers moving forward. They absolutely cannot be seduced by raw talent and neglect things like fit and winning DNA. Daryl Morey's obsession with talent over everything is likely the reason that he never made it a top priority to get off of Harris's contract. If there's one thing that Harris is, it's talented. I imagine if Morey ever seriously considered trying to salary dump Tobias, he fell back on the idea that talent wins championships and Tobias is too talented to give away for nothing. But he was wrong. There are tons of players who are less talented than Tobias Harris who would have given the Sixers a better chance to win the title over the past 6 years. And so, as I do my final reflection on the Tobias era, I have absolutely nothing good to say. I don't have a single positive memory of his time here that is worth mentioning. I will have no nostalgia for watching him, and I feel no degree of sorrow watching him leave. I would say that I'm thrilled, and in some way I am, but I'm frankly too scarred to celebrate. The torment of rooting for a basketball team that he played for will haunt me for the rest of my life. Goodbye, Toby.
6 years, man.
It's a long time.
6 years.
It's a long time.
He just was never that good. There is nothing. It is the one of the worst contractual mistakes any team has ever made in basketball. It is borderline Bobby Bonilla. Like, what a waste of time it all was. And it wasn't always bad. There were moments that he played like fine as the third or fourth best player on the team sometimes. But like on the whole, you step back, he stayed the whole time. Too good to trade, too bad to help. Like, just, I can't believe he played the whole fucking contract here, man. It was an awful experience that you always had to game plan around, a liability in every area of the court. And yet the Sixers didn't do a good enough job of having more useful players to sub in for him. Like, Justin Holiday would have been a more useful player the last 6 years than Tobias. And that's like a classic minimum guy.
By the way, as he wrote in the article, Nick Batum.
Oh, 100%
would have
Nick Batum.
been.
100%.
Yeah.
It's just like to be not that smart on the basketball court, to be not high motor, not much hustle, not much athleticism, not much defense. Although he's always better than a little bit. Some people thought on ball.
Nice guy.
Off ball, just not much. Not a good shooter. Not off the catch. Not good at getting fouled. Not good around the rim. Not getting above the rim. Like, just so many things that you're just like, can you just? The best hope was just him like dipsy doing into daddy touch time, and like hopefully it goes in, like a contested 16-footer. It's so much better to look back on and be honest about now, because so much of being a fan, I think, is like lying to yourself,
talking yourself into shit,
talking yourself into it, saying that like there have been games when Tobias was helpful, so maybe he can get back to just being pretty helpful. And now that it's over, and God, let it be over. If Daryl brings him back on a team-friendly
There's
deal,
no chance.
I'm gonna lose it.
There's no
You just
chance.
you get 15 guys that you can have on a roster. 15. Make sure they're the kinds of players that you would play and want to be on your team. You don't have to. There's so many guys in the league. There's so many teams. You can just decide, yeah, that guy might be good at these kinds of things, but like, not for our team. And we have to just be able to say that this offseason. This is the last time that we can go, not for our team. And I really want Daryl to be discerning and specific about the kinds of players that he wants and needs to be around Maxey and Embiid. Because those guys are so fucking good, man. Like
We're
that's
culture guys here.
That's a better starting two starting guys than most teams in the league. And we're still a team that hasn't gotten past the second round. Like, we are happy with those two guys. You just gotta we gotta surround him with players that are the kinds of types of players, emotional types of players, physical types of players, quick decision types of players that you want to be on a court with them. That you wouldn't go like, man, I wish we didn't have this guy so our coach wasn't forced to play him or tempted to play him. He played fucking 38 minutes in some playoff game. What are we doing? How did that keep happening?
One thing that MOC wrote in the article that I actually think is wrong, but not in a comforting way, is when he was talking about how they scouted him and how enamored they were. I actually don't think that's what happened. I actually think they traded for Jimmy Butler. They saw it be more. They knew, I think, rather quickly that they weren't going to keep Jimmy Butler, and they were in we got to show the fans we're winning mode. And they traded Tobias Harris as a hedge, and they gave up too much to not sign him. And I think it was actually not scouting malpractice. It was just dumb panic.
Yeah.
And if you remember correct, just 1 second, if you remember correctly, that was when we had the 5-headed GM of, Elton was the GM, but it was, Rucker and Ned Cohen and all those guys. And when you have a bunch of people making decisions,
David Heller.
It is way worse than having one bad guy making decisions,
Yeah.
actually.
Everybody can throw each other under the bus.
Yeah.
Like, it's so tough because had they traded like one fewer pick for Tobias, the team could have convinced themselves like, hey, it didn't really work. Like,
just let him go.
Let him walk. But you traded too much for him and then justified signing him to the biggest contract you could give him and giving his brother a contract who sucked.
You know what's wild, too?
Because of how much you already spent for him. Like, that is just such bad management. It is such bad management. And we have been living and suffering through those mistakes. Those two mistakes that compounded each other for years, for 6 years. And now it's over, and Joel is, better than he was, but also less healthy than he was. Or less time to execute what he's capable of on the playoff stage. And they lucked into Maxey, God bless him, but there's so much less time because of the fuckery that happened with Tobias. It's so embarrassing. And we're going to have opinions about who we think that they should sign and who's interesting to sign and what kind of player would be there. And some of that is going to be based on just like reputation. And it's very different to watch somebody when they're playing for your team. That's something that you and I talk about a lot. When you watch somebody play for your team and need them to execute in this particular way and they don't do it, like Dan Ollinger pointed me to this Clippers podcast.
Yeah.
The 213. Did you listen to that?
He tweeted about it. I didn't listen to it. Yeah.
And it's tough hearing them talk about Paul George, man.
Yeah.
It is tough hearing them talk about Paul George. And while I think the role he would have here as a sort of five-tool guy, can do everything, occasionally amp his game up when Embiid is hurt or Maxey's not on. It's hard to not trust the people that have been watching this guy play for their team for a number of years and go like, I hope you walk away, get the fuck out of here. No matter what, he's going to be better. He would be better than Tobias. But that does give me a lot of pause, and the Sixers should do more research and have more information and actually know, and not just be Daryl going, it's a max contract guy, we're going to get it for him, and like we'll have as good of a shot as any. Like I need more consideration on the human level of the alchemy of this team from the Sixers front office.
What's funny about the Tobias trade is, you gave up 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and Shamet. They somehow got Jimmy Butler for Covington, Saric, and a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah, because that was
like
a joke of a trade. That's Minnesota, the Wolves that we were just talking about.
Yeah,
an embarrassing trade for them.
Yeah,
and the Sixers for Tobias, an embarrassing trade for them.
It's absolutely crazy. So, speaking of Paul George, let's go into. I feel like we have to talk about Paul George here because you set it up. We got this call. I want to play 2 pieces of audio. This call to 833 Lickface.
This is Jack from New Jersey. I'm calling about Paul George. I think 2 things. First thing, Ricky fans, stop calling Paul George Tobias Harris 2.0. Not going to be Tobias Harris 2.0. Tobias Harris off this basketball team is simply addition by subtraction. A fucking banana peel can be paid $40 million. It would have been a better use of money to be thrown on the basketball court instead of whatever the fuck Tobias Harris was in Game 6. This is the second thing, paying Paul George max money when he turns 38 years old, that's a tough sell. It's a tough sell. And maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm stupid. But Mike telling me he's a great fit between Tyrese Maxey and Embiid it's not doing it for me, because I feel like I've heard that about Paul George at every place he went in his career. And what has that gotten every single team who's had him on their team? Nothing. He is a reputational playoff faller and never contributed to winning in the big moments once throughout his career. And
Not true, by the way, but
he's played with Hall of Famers across the board. So why am I paying the 38-year-old version of a guy who cannot live up to his potential and his theoretical limits? Why am I paying the 38-year-old version of that $50 million? Explain that to me. I don't get that. I don't understand that.
now here is Evan Turner on Paul George on his podcast with Andre Iguodala. CJ, there you go.
You got some teams in the playoffs right now. Obviously, the Cavaliers. You have the Thunder, the Pacers that used to have like crazy superstars that would make a crazy impact. Would Carmelo be decent with either the Knicks or the Nuggets? Now, shout out to my nigga Justin Holiday, but Justin Holiday gives some minutes Melo could play.
Nuggets would be really, really unstoppable. Because, I mean, people know how good Melo was. KD would be amazing with OKC. PG would be really good with the Pacers. Pacers would be scary.
But I think their kryptonite would always be what it is. Either Halliburton would have to mature into like the go-to game ender, or PG is just going to... A Halliburton matchup might be cakewalk to certain people, G. Like, you know what I mean? Like coming down the stretch. Like that's not in no disrespectful sense. But then I'm just saying because that's the only best option because PG has a history of not showing up, which is an understatement. Just the other day. I never met a human that will let a media rumor drive his like energy or personality. Like somebody was like, I heard he going to Philly. And that nigga was like, you know what? I'm going to Philly, G. Do you know how soft that team going to be if him and Embiid go together? It'd probably be the most skilled duo ever since Kobe and Shaq. Embiid to be hurt and PG going to be Baldo.
So the thing is, though, I know it was 10 years ago, but saying that Paul George never had playoff success is untrue. He was in the conference finals twice as the best player on the Pacers. It was 10 years ago.
And the Clippers when Kawhi went down.
Yeah, but it did happen.
Yeah, he's had more playoff success than the rest of the Sixers.
Yes,
have
combined. Yeah. So
can I just say,
yeah,
like if you're pointing to players who have had huge success as the number one option on their teams, or even number two option on their teams, and saying, like, if you haven't, then I don't want you on my team, then you're not going to sign anybody because that guy's not available.
Right.
If they're that good and still young, they're staying on their team unless there's something wrong with them. That's why the Sixers got Jimmy for so little is because he was like a devalued asset because of like behavioral stuff and just like general team vibe. And then the Sixers gave him away for Josh Richardson for a similar reason. And now he's a guy that has, gotten to the finals and led his team and been awesome and all that stuff. And now he's also old.
And by the way, might be available for the same reason.
It's the same shit. Like,
yeah.
If once the way that you get homegrown superstars is to draft them, you draft them. That was the whole point of the process, is to have more bites at the apple so you can have homegrown superstars that you can watch get better and be undervalued and get them in their prime when they're not. I'm going to have to take a chance on this guy and hope that he can hold up at age 35, 36, 37. It's not a buffet. You don't just get to pick. And the fact that the Sixers have a ton of cap space right now means they can sign any of these kinds of free agents. Paul George, if LeBron opts out, if you want to go back to James Harden or DeMar DeRozan, or we'll see what happens with Pascal and OG on their respective teams. Odds are they sign. Tobias is around. Like, there's just not that many options of guys you can sign into it. Now, if you want to, you can acquire guys, but it's going to cost those picks that you will then regret trading later on when you go, man, I wish we had some homegrown guys that could work. It's just that's why I resent many iterations of Sixers front offices for trading so many picks, is because they could have gotten more guys that go, oh, that guy became Tyrese Maxey. And Tyrese Maxey developed into a guy that we're not going to trade. And that guy became, on the Thunder, Jalen Williams in his second year, who's like going to be a max player already. Like, there's so many of those guys that get drafted. And obviously, not every draft pick hits. Teams make mistakes. guys get hurt, guys forget how to shoot, whatever it is. But like when you're talking about, we should get a guy in his prime who has a history of winning and would want to come here and their team would want to trade him to us for whatever. Like that doesn't exist. That guy doesn't exist. That guy does not exist. And so you have to feel, do I feel conflicted about Paul George? Absolutely.
Feel conflicted about everybody on the list.
Everybody on the list. Everybody on the list. There's nobody that's perfect. Paul George, at least you can go and that Clippers podcast and the guys that watch him every single night, rooting for him, wanting him to do the thing that they wanted him to do, and him not doing it. It's going against that. But he is certainly capable of defending at a high level. He is capable of spacing the floor at a high level, and he's capable of running actual offense for himself, isolation, pick and roll, making passes, doing everything on a basketball court at a very high level. Does he do it all the time? Does my wife think he's a fucking loser and saying if you sign him, you will regret it? Yes. But like there's just not that many options of guys that are available that would cost nothing but money in the cap space that the Sixers have. That there's just nobody that is a perfect fit. There's nobody that is a perfect stage of their career, cost, history of success, everything. That's just not how it works. And so you have to be real about it. Every single option is going to be a risk. Now you can say like, let's go get cheaper guys and hope that like Gary Trent Jr., Bruce Brown,
Malik Monk,
and maybe Batum and Covington and Melton, like, and that's your rotation right there, and hope that they all put it together and work. And maybe Gary Trent like takes the next step and all of a sudden become like, the likelihood of those things happening is small.
And by the way, a lot of times those guys get overpaid too.
Yes.
Bruce Brown got paid $50 million for 2 years, so the number of role players or that end up working out the way that everyone just saw. I think everyone just has like Knicks PTSD. They see Josh Hart.
It's understandable to overreact.
Yes, and Dante DiVincenzo. And if it was so easy to get great players at a bargain, and by the way, the Knicks are about to give OG Anunoby $40 million a year, and he's a good player, and he's not like Tobias, but he's also going to get a giant contract. He's never made an all-star team, and he maybe never will in his entire career.
But at least he can hang his hat on the fact that he's a very good defender and he's big and athletic. Tobias was big out of those things.
I'm just saying that those players, like, it's a lot more complicated. As you were saying with the player, it's a lot more complicated than it seems. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by LL Pavorsky Jewelers. Mike, did you know that we hit 400 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners who have purchased engagement rings from LL?
I did know. I thought that would push the Sixers over the top. But I guess I'm going to need to watch somebody have sex for that to really lock in.
Yeah, so Mike promised he would watch the couple have sex if the couple is into it, of course.
Yeah. You volunteered that I would involve myself, but
yes.
I changed the terms of that to just watch and no touching. No touching allowed. So
if you are, and I have the name and email address if you want me to send them a note, but if you are number 400,
no, they have to reach out to us. Okay. We're not going forward and say, hey, do you want your deal? Here's your perk.
May God bless you if they do reach out.
Yeah.
May God. Yeah. So if you are number 400, we want Mike to watch you have sex, then just, Rights to Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com.
Yeah. There's only so few. There's not that many things we haven't done in the 11 years of this podcast, and I guess that would be the next logical step.
I'm sorry for the coughing. The pollen count fucking crazy where I am. I hate it. Yellow all over everything. LL Pavorsky Jewelers is the first sponsor of the Ricky. 400 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have purchased engagement rings from LL. He even, his Ricky customers, he gifts them Ricky stuff. I just saw on Twitter today, he ordered like 2 cases of the Stateside the Year vodka so he can give it to his Ricky customers. What I like about LL is that he treats all of our customers with a ton of respect and no pressure. A lot of jewelry stores, you walk in there, they're on you like white on rice, as the kids say. Not LL. LL, no pressure, treats you with respect, so much so that he doesn't even want you walking in. No walk-ins. Nope. He's like a fancy hairdresser. You got to make an appointment. And the reason he does that is he wants to be able to talk to you beforehand so he can have everything out for you when you show up. and give you one-on-one service. Really just the best. Every person we've heard from who has purchased an engagement ring from LL has been absolutely thrilled. If you want to make an appointment, 215-627-2252 is the phone number. Lee at llpavorsky.com, on Twitter at llpavorsky. The store, 707 Walnut, been there for 36 years. A supporter of our charities, Providence Animal Center and Mama T's Community Fridge. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
He's watching too.
So, oh God.
I'm bringing a friend, and it's LL.
Jesus. So where are you on Paul George? Like, we were all, and by the way, just as like in addition to this, not just that caller, not just Evan Turner, like I've heard a lot of blowback from like our listeners, like no. And to your point,
a lot of it is just like reputation.
Yes.
The way that like Cat has a reputation, the way that Westbrook has a reputation. Guys with like star level, all-star level guys that are very known and have a reputation are going to get that kind of treatment unless they've won a championship or at least like competed close to one like Jimmy has.
It's funny. People will bring up, and we talked about him last pod, so we won't talk again, talk about Brandon Ingram. Well, he's 27, yada, yada, yada.
Doesn't have as much reputation because he hasn't
been there.
Made a ton of all-star teams and been there at the highest level and been allowed to fail at the highest level because his teams weren't good enough.
And on top of that, you just have to say to yourself, and it doesn't mean that New Orleans knows what they're doing. Absolutely not. You have to say to yourself, okay, here is a 27-year-old player.
Yep.
In like going into his prime.
Yep.
That a team has control over and is unwilling to pay. It's weird. Do you know what I mean? Like there is a team who the team does not want him. And maybe, okay, he fits in the same position. He's on the same position on the court as Zion, but Zion's no fucking lock to play. Like Zion's hurt 70% of the year anyway. So that's like sort of a red flag for me. So here's some, we talked about Jimmy last time. We talked about Paul George.
It's just a different category.
Talked about Ingram.
Then the idea of, I'm still like undecided on Paul George. I think like anybody that you sign to this kind of big contract is going to be, you're going to pay for it on the back end. This is that's just the nature of these kinds of contracts. You're giving him 5 years in hopes that the first 2 or 3 years are going to be very good and then tailing off to be like just okay, or one bad injury and it's just he's never the same, and then you pay to get off that contract, whatever. By the time that the end of that contract would come, Embiid's prime is probably over anyway, and you're rebuilding. It's hard to go. The fact that he can just walk in and you don't have to pay any picks for him, and then you have those picks to mid-season improve the roster is very big for me. The idea that you'd have to trade a ton of shit for Kevin Durant or Brandon Ingram or Jimmy Butler to a team that doesn't want to trade them to the Sixers.
Right.
They're not incentivized to trade in the Sixers. Teams really don't like trading with Daryl that much, it seems, especially trading star players to Daryl. They don't like that. That's something that they are not into. And so it would really require a player to say, Philadelphia, that's where I'm going, that's where you're trading me, and then the team has to be the kind of team that doesn't do what Portland did and trade Dame to Milwaukee. Like, it's just, there's so many variables in it. When someone's just a free agent, Sixers have cap space, guy wants to sign here you go. It just makes it so much easier. So that's got Paul George with a lot going for it. But it doesn't have to just be Paul George. You could tell me we're going to do the same thing for Siakam. You could tell me we're going to do the same thing for Anunoby if the Knicks are trying to lowball him or something like that.
Well, who would you just right now taking temperature, Paul George or OG Anunoby?
I would go with Paul George.
Okay, Paul George or Pascal Siakam.
But Anunoby is 7 years younger than Anunoby is 7 years, which is nice and it's helpful. Yeah. But Paul George is just a better player. He's just a better player.
Also,
a better shooter.
By the way, I think fits a little bit better. Siakam, not the shooter that Paul George is.
Not even close.
Siakam, higher usage sort of guy than Paul George is.
Yeah. The question is, do you do Paul George at a max contract for 5 years, or do you do DeMar DeRozan at less than a max contract, maybe way less than a max contract for maybe way fewer years, and then have more money to go get, okay, DeRozan, obviously not a very willing shooter, not a crazy good defender, a little bit useless without the ball in his hands, but he's physical, he plays hard, he gets to the line a fuckload, he hits tough shots always, and gives you another option, run pick and roll, that kind of thing, has turned into a better passer. And then you can get him at a lower number and go like, okay, well, what else do we need? What else do we need to make that happen, to make a good basketball team happen out of that? And maybe that's Malik Monk. You have enough money to get Malik Monk. You have enough money to keep DeAnthony Melton if he's healthy. You have enough money to go get, I don't know, Andre Drummond as the backup center, or Derek Jones, or whoever, somebody that you think like, okay, this is gonna make the team better generally. Or you have picks to then trade somebody. If you want to lose the B-ball experience, you trade B-ball and whatever for somebody that's available via trade because you have picks to trade. That's the question, and that's what the Sixers front office is hopefully deciding between now, deciding on now, because it's just a tough spot. There's no easy way to do it.
By the way,
there's just not an easy way to go like, this is the answer, obviously do it. Even if your answer is like Mikal Bridges, number one option, Mikal Bridges. All things being equal, absolutely, I would love Mikal Bridges on this team. Bring him home 100%. But the Nets might not trade him, and even if they opened him up to trading him, the Sixers might not have the best offer.
Right.
And it's just you can't force teams to do shit. And if you do force them to do the thing that you don't want them to do, you're usually paying way more than you should have to for this kind of player, and that gets you in trouble.
Yeah, to your point, it's not just up to the Sixers whether any of these things happen. Any of these players. Like the player has to want to come here, or the team has to want to trade him here too. So
there was a quote in the Darryl press conference that I liked a lot what he said. I think it was pretty honest. But he gave himself maybe a little bit too much credit for going like, I think we're good at identifying minimum contract guys. And that's his MO. Like Daryl's going to go stars and scrubs, and hopefully that some of the scrubs are going to help enough to like way overplay that contract and give you what the kind of, instead of a guy making $2.5 million or whatever it was for the minimum, you're now that guy is producing at the level of somebody that a $12 million contract would give you because that's how the roster crunch and the money crunch and the salary cap works. Is there's not much of a middle class. I don't know that that's the kind of strategy that can be repeated reliably. Oubre came here a lot based on luck. The fact that he was that size and that athletic and committed to defense and willing to do it. Like, I think just assuming that it's going to happen again is unlikely. He's never been a minimum contract guy. He's going to get paid this offseason, whether it's from us or somebody else. I just don't expect that Daryl's going to find a diamond in the rough like that again. But Lowry coming here, having a buyout guy come here, like finally, after years of buyout guys either not coming to Philadelphia or not producing once they got here. Yeah, and also Daryl just hasn't been successful at the deadline. He just hasn't been.
Not while he's been here. No, for
not
sure.
while he's struck out a bunch of times at the deadline. And again, that is the kind of, you can't make the other team trade the player. Like, you can't make Chicago trade Andre Drummond. They didn't want to. And if you wanted to get him, you would have had to trade way more than he is worth.
And by the way, wouldn't have changed the
Probably
outcome.
not. But he would have been. B-ball was not good this playoffs, and Drummond might have helped that in some regard, at least, like clean up some rebounding issues. Maybe.
I think he sucks, but whatever.
I've never been a Drummond guy, but watching the Knicks over and over again, just like maul the offensive glass, and us be powerless to stop them, made me like a boomer level horny for Andre Drummond. Just fun to get the fucking rebounds. Jesus Christ.
I don't think the Suns are going to trade Durant. And so it's a weird conversation to have. Would like to have Durant on the team.
Yeah, I mean, if it was all things being equal, you can have one player on the Sixers next year, Kevin Durant, even at his age, 3 years older than Paul George?
I think he's 35.
He's 35?
Yeah.
I thought he was 36 or 37.
No.
Would absolutely pick Durant. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's 35. He'll be 36 in September.
Okay, so he's 36 for next year. Paul George is going to be 34 for next year. But that's Kevin Durant and all the picks those are gone, and now you have fewer ways to improve the team in that way. And so this is the hard stuff, man. This is the tricky stuff. And again, the Suns might not want to trade him, but the argument against that, I just keep arguing both sides because this is the conversations that are happening in the Sixers front office. Is like, look what the Suns just happened with Bradley Beal. They acquire Bradley Beal, who signed the Supermax contract.
Yep.
And he fucking is not the guy that he used to be. And the idea that he's injured all the time, and also when he does play, he's not as good as he used to be. And it's like that contract is going to fucking sit there.
By the way, he's just a shitty version of Devin Booker.
He's a worse version. And that's bad, like, team building.
Yeah.
On that regard. And at least you can that's the thing with like the Ben situation, the Harden situation, the Brad Beal situation. Like, there is no version of Paul George on the Sixers that doesn't at least make logical sense. You have Maxey, you have Embiid, you need somebody on the wing who can do everything else. That he does that. And whether he can take over a game at any point or average like 24 a night or something like that as he ages into his mid to late 30s as this comes, that we don't know, but we know he's at least not a complete liability on the defensive end, not a complete liability as a shooter, not a complete liability with the ball in his hands. And Tobias, at various points in his Sixers career, was all of those things. So no matter what, he is going to be better than Tobias if that happens, and you can at least defend it by making logical sense. Everybody else, and at least signing him, you still have other ways to improve the team. But if there's some magical algorithm that Daryl has that shows you that, like, you know, trading for, I'm just trying to name or signing Haywood Highsmith and he becomes like an even better player than he is, like somebody that's like a complete low contract guy, and then signing him and that guy can give you what Paul George gives you for way less of a number, then great. Then let's do that. But you gotta hit on some of those guys. And aside from Oubre, it's just really, really hard to hit on contributing do-it-all wings at a low number. And it's just Paul George can walk in here for nothing but money right now, and that would be good, even with all of the problems with him as like a number one option, which he wouldn't be here.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned Mikal Bridges. I just don't think they're going to trade him. And to your point, he is a sort of player that would fit on literally every team. So any team that has draft picks to trade, you know, like if Oklahoma City wants him on their team, they can have him. You know, like we're going to lose out to a few different teams.
Paul George for a 4-year max, or DeMar DeRozan for 120.
I don't want DeMar DeRozan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's certainly not for 40. I just don't want anyone who's not going to shoot a three when it gets passed to them at that spot.
I might have overshot it. He made $27 million this year, but he has still been good, and he's about to turn 35.
He feels like a 260 guy, like the Kyle Lowry contract.
Okay, well, what if it is exactly 260?
He's just not the guy I want there. I want that person to shoot 3-point shots. Honestly,
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that.
I can't.
He's played with Nurse before, so maybe there's at least a learning curve there. I would see the logic of going, let's have a wing that can penetrate, that can get to the line, that has hit, which you have to admit, has hit a ton of tough shots over the course of big moments. Like, obviously the Bulls have been pointless for a number of years, but like in close games, he hits tough shots always, and always seems to make guys bite with his pump fake, and has improved as a passer, and seems to be a guy that people like playing with, and doesn't have the like loser energy of Paul George that we have to admit that like is the reputation, not knowing he hasn't played for the Sixers, so it really is hard to know how real that is until you're rooting for the guy and you can tell. But I wouldn't, if it's Paul George max contract 4 years, or DeMar DeRozan 260, and then you can go get a bunch of other guys. At that number, I probably would go DeRozan.
Oh, I think that's a mistake.
And maybe
good player.
Yeah, I mean, like Daryl just seems like the guy that's always going to get the better player and trust himself to figure it out on minimums and whatever. But like the Sixers this year, Part of it was injuries. Did not have enough guys that they could trust when they went up against the Knicks team that was bigger, hungrier, more athletic than them. And you're not going to have your pick of the best when you're only offering people minimum contracts. And also, if you get the other thing about only getting big contracts is like, if you get DeRozan, then you can give guys 10 million, 15 million. Look at the Knicks cap sheet. Like, then you can package those guys up and trade them for somebody else, or you can trade one for somebody else that makes that number. It's a more tradable situation rather than like, okay, so it's like Korkmaz plus House plus Springer plus, even just the Sixers trading Harden to those guys, to the Clippers, and getting all those tradable contracts back. You could start to like, okay, it didn't work out this way, but you can start to mix and match numbers rather than going, we got Embiid at this high number, we got Maxey at this high number, we got Paul George at this high number, and the next highest guy is B-Ball Paul at 8 million.
I have a number for you right after we tell you about Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. Man, Kornblau and Kornblau has grown and grown since they first started advertising on the Ricky. I think they were number 2, the second advertiser on the Ricky, the premier boutique personal injury law firm in the Delaware Valley, the official personal injury law firm of the Ricky. Adam Kornblau, an obsession with personal injury law, with getting you what you deserve, a true obsession, an obsession with good communication. When you call and ask for Adam, you get Adam. It's not some referral service. No. Like, you see the billboards, you hear the ads for personal injury lawyers, you call up, you're just getting an answering service and they're referring you to somebody else. Not when you call Adam. 215-576-7200. Ask for Adam or email Kornblau and Kornblau at Kornblau. Kornblau at kornblauandkornblau.com. Kornblau. Look, whether it is medical malpractice, which is their specialty, injured at work, slip and fall, car accident, if you've been injured in any way and you feel like it may be someone's fault, that's when you reach out to Kornblau. Personal injury lawsuits are complicated. They take a long time. They are frustrating. You need someone in your corner who you can depend on, who will communicate with you, make you feel good about the process. Adam Kornblau is that. They've been around for 4 decades, started by his parents, works there still with his mom, who's a lawyer, and hundreds of other Kornblaus just, in the walls, everywhere. They have a bunch of offices in the Delaware Valley, but they will do house calls. Kornblau will come to your house. I'm telling you, you can't trust anybody else with this. He's helped so many Ricky listeners, even with non-personal injury things. He won't try it for you, but he'll give you his advice. Look, call or email. It doesn't cost you anything. 215-576-7200. Ask for Adam. Or email Kornblau at kornblauandkornblau.com. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process.
I just don't want Darryl to get cute. Don't get fucking cute.
Just let me give you these numbers.
Yeah. That's right.
0.6, 0.5, 1.2, 1.9, 1.9, 2.8.
Kelly Oubre assist numbers?
No.
What is it?
That is the number of 3-point attempts per game for the last 6 years for DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah.
Topped out at 2.8 this year. Bottomed out at 0.6 and 0.5. Has averaged
But it's gone up. But it's gone up, right?
Yes.
So.
Well, down, then up, then down, then up. Average actually 3.6 in 2017, 2018.
Certainly not a Darryl type player.
1.6 per game for his career.
And certainly not ideal for the kind of off-ball threat you want for Maxey and Embiid. In that version, it'd be a lot of DeRozan and Embiid pick and rolls with Maxey running off screens and spreading the floor. Because you could double off of DeRozan. But he's a decently heady cutter and he moves well. But the benefit to me would be you can sign this guy for a lot less and get other guys, and also he can be a number 1 option in like crunch time situations. But it's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. They really truly aren't. I just don't want Darryl to do like. I just don't want him to do the cute thing where it's like, this guy's undervalued and maybe it can work for us. It just really feels like...
It never does, Darryl.
It almost never does.
Yeah.
At the minimum, you take a swing on a guy that you like if you think, okay, that this kind of athleticism and size and body and type of player or whatever skill set you have that you think, sure, you take a swing. Mo Bamba was a great swing to take. It did not work out, but it was a great swing to take, and you do that every day of the week at the minimum, totally fine. But like, don't get cute with some of those other guys.
The Knicks win 130-121, but lose OG Anunoby to a strained hamstring.
Jesus.
Brunson
did finish with 29. Holy shit. He's
Brunson
so good,
played, but from reports, looks like he was pretty limited in that second half. You know, it's funny. I like
Pacers,
all of
Pacers just don't defend.
Yeah. Well, also people were complaining that Carlisle would not play TJ down the stretch when he had I think 13 assists tonight or something like that. You know, you can't play. They played Alec Burks a little bit tonight. We didn't see Alec Burks one time in the entire series.
Burks played 1 minute in this game.
Just that I saw him on the court. I forgot he was on the Knicks.
And
then
he left the court as soon as you stopped looking.
You just cannot play all your players 45 minutes a game and have them not hurt themselves. Like you just can't, you know?
Flash Hart 48, DiVincenzo 44. Yeah. Brunson only 32 because he missed.
Yeah, but he played 20 minutes in the second, 22 minutes in the second half when he was hurt.
Yeah.
You know?
And they won.
Fuck, man. It's crazy. He's a fucking lunatic. This came from Slavic to Rights to Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Hello, Spike, Mike, CJ, and Daryl. First of all, thank you and your Rights to Ricky Sanchez unit for what you are doing. I'm with Spike on the team not embarrassing us this year. In my opinion, if it was a second-round exit, it would be something fair considering Harden's summer and current roster, but we were the 7th seed, which brings me to this. Daryl didn't make this year's top 15 executives. This offseason is the time to correct it, but the task at hand is tricky. This team can't be built strictly into Joe Ellis extensions and fall apart every time without him anymore. Trying to build a more generic roster could result in another 19-20 team. I'm probably wrong. That's why I'm crying words into a keyboard and Daryl's out there playing chess with B-ball. I trust in Daryl, but it's time for Mr. Morey to earn his story. Now, despite the early exit, I feel hope, which I haven't felt since before the Jimmy and Tobias trades, because now the front office can actually get things done, not just react. There is no Ben, there is no Harden, and it looks like a calm, productive offseason is looming. I know these words will come back and kick me in the dick, but I'm now at peace, which I wish all for you. He says one thing that is very important there. It is that if we give Daryl every benefit of the doubt, didn't want to trade Tobias because it would have cost a first-round pick. He didn't want to do it. Didn't want to make a big deal at the deadline because he wasn't sure about Embiid and he had a big offseason coming. Yada, 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 all of these things. Then it's all been building to this particular offseason, and he just has to he has to crush this offseason.
100%.
Yeah.
Didn't trade any picks, any first at the deadline. Didn't trade Tobias. Kept the cap sheet completely clear aside from Embiid, Maxey, and Ricky Council because B-Ball Paul is non-guaranteed.
But I believe Ricky Council is non-guaranteed as well.
Well, I'm guaranteeing it myself.
Okay. Right,
I'm doing it right now. I think that there's a good chance that they are at least looking and considering, especially because of the tax situation and the rules against the second apron and the apron and the hard tax and all the stuff that they are that other teams around the league, cheaper owners, will be wanting their GMs to get the fuck out of. That's part of why the Pelicans are looking to trade Ingram, is because they've never paid the luxury tax. And I think getting some guys, like, for example, this is me shooting from the hip, but like, could you get Jeremy Grant from Portland for like, just thank you for taking him off our hand, like for like one pick, basically?
One pick. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Would I do that? Is that a happy resolution to the third guy there? I'm not sure. He's at least young and athletic still. He's 29.
I think I'd still rather have Paul George.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the guy can just walk, again, he can just walk right in there. Thank you for the money. I'm now on the team. It costs you nothing else. But I think you're going to look around and go, like, which teams have players that they don't want to sign or they don't want to hold on to because they don't want to pay more in tax or suffer the consequences of the aprons and stuff and the hard cap. So we'll see. And we'll keep looking at the free agents and, we can look at guys that we want more. I know you're a Gary Trent guy.
I've always loved Gary Trent.
I don't think him and Nurse don't get along, right?
I don't think so.
Wasn't there an issue there?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, finding who those guys are that would love to have the kind of, now I'm just going to name nuggets, but like the kind of Bruce Brown working for us at a low number in a playoff series. KCP on multiple teams doing just like playing good, solid role player basketball and stuff. Daryl, I think, thinks you can get role players for cheaper and is willing to pay and usually overpay for stars and for the potential. Paul George is that. It's going to hurt at some point, but can you steal a good playoff run with if everybody's healthy at the same time before the back end of the contract starts to hurt? But you're right. I mean, like he's just got to do it. Like Daryl Truly, he's been here for what? Is he going into his 4th season here?
He got here after the COVID season, right?
So 2021, because he drafted Maxey in 2021, 21, 22, 23, 24. So this is about to be his 4th season. He's done, for as much chaos as there has been around the team, partly his fault, partly not his fault, he's not like done that much. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit like he made the Harden trade and that's big, and then he traded Harden away and that's big. But other than that, like it's kind of just been not flipping the table, not going too hard, not staking any big claims in anything. Just sort of, there's been no massive free agent signing. It wasn't like the Al Horford offseason. It wasn't like we're going to trade for Jimmy and Tobias during the same season. It's just sort of like Embiid and Maxey. We take a swing with Harden. That didn't work. I'm a liar. Goodbye. And now it's like this, it really has all been building to this. And this is the most fresh air that they will have to do kind of whatever they want within reason. And he's just got to be, a lot of the guys that Daryl assumed would be available or thought could be available in this offseason have re-signed with those teams or will like seemingly re-sign with those teams. Siakam, Anunoby, I'm talking about. And so it's like, there's just not that many guys that it could be. There's just not that many guys it could be. So it's either it's Paul George, it's DeRozan, it's LeBron, or it's a trade. And we would have to just absorb whoever into our cap and pay picks for that.
We end the pod on a sad note. The first, as far as I can tell, the first person on the shirt to pass away is Darius Morris.
Oh, that is very sad.
Darius Morris's family announced his death in a statement shared with TMZ on Saturday. With great sadness, we announced the passing of our dearly beloved son, Darius Aaron Morris. During this time of transition, his family asks that you please respect their wishes for privacy and grace. That is a statement from the Lakers. His body was found in the Los Angeles area, according to TMZ. His Lakers, his family did not provide a cause of death. So rest in peace, Darius Morris, the on the shirt Sixer in 2013, the first year of the process. So rest in peace, Darius Morris.
Went to Michigan. Solid point guard. Played a couple years there. Who did he play with? Did he play with Stauskas? No, he was with Tim Hardaway Jr. Right before. Manny Harris. God, I loved Manny Harris.
Sucks, man. He was 33 years
really
old.
Sad. Young dude.
Yeah.
Got to play in the NBA. Played for a couple teams. Just, man, a real bummer. Really sad.
All right. We will talk to you next time this weekend. CJ's not going to be here. Are we allowed to say what you're doing, CJ? CJ's running a 50-mile race.
Holy shit.
Yep.
Okay.
50K. Oh, that's bullshit then. Fuck off.
Still
that's
a lot.
30 miles.
Still a lot of Ks.
My brother did a 50-miler once. Collapsed mid-race.
Oh, geez.
Dehydrated. They rehydrated him. He finished the fucking race. Wow. That's right.
Wow.
The other race my brother did that I have some video of. There's a race in San Francisco near the Golden Gate Bridge where it is a 1 mile loop. and everybody runs for 24 hours, and the person that runs the most laps wins.
Holy shit.
And my brother and his friend, I was there just filming. Didn't bring a chair. There's no chairs there, guys. Just so we know, there's no chairs there. You're sitting on the ground. I didn't know that. This is before Uber, too. So I bring the camera. I film them. They give up like 13 miles into it. Because they can't run anymore. My brother and his friend, they just can't do it anymore. I make them pop champagne 13 miles into it. They each take a sip of it. We couldn't get a cab, couldn't get an Uber, had to walk back to the hotel after they had run for 13 hours.
Yowza.
Yeah. So good luck, CJ. 50K. Is it? Can you tell us where it is? Are you too scared?
No, it's the Dirty German Trail Run in Pennypack, North Philly.
Oh,
Pennypack Park.
Oh, cool. Right. Is it a loop or it has to be?
Yeah, it's like a figure 8 loop. That's I think it's like 25K, a full loop.
My dad has an iconic story among my friend group growing up of when he as a kid accidentally buried his dad's tools at Pennypack Park and could never find them again.
Feels like a movie.
Every friend I had from birth until age like 15 has heard the tools story many times. And,
I'll try to find them.
Yeah, please do. Start digging.
Yeah.
Well, good luck, CJ. I have my basketball game tonight, so that's what I'm doing athletically. Not 50 miles. Not 50K.
No.
Hopefully a win.
50-0.
That's the score that I hope it is.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you this weekend. Are you done with TTP?
Yeah. You know, like face.